name is Thom Rainer. I'm joined by Mark Clifton, and this is it. The papers have been signed. The separation is about to. I can't do that. I cannot do that.
Oh.
This is the last episode of Revitalize and Replant with Mark and Thom. Revitalize and Replant is going to continue, but this is the last episode with the two of us. Though we have promised each other we'll be on each other's podcasts, I want the friendship to remain. We talk to each other on an occasional basis, but it seems
as much as two introverts would ever talk to each other. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, Thom, are you there? Yes, I am, but not now. Something like that. But we talked about how the podcast began. We talked about some of the highlights of the podcast, which Mark Clifton turned into a Keith Getty fest, but it was still worth listening to. But I had to talk about what Mark had done and some of my favorite parts of it. And this time we're talking about where we are going from here. Now, just to be clear, the North American Mission Board has been the gracious sponsor of Revitalize and Replant and will continue to be. And Mark is a part of the North American Mission Board, and he's blessed them and they've blessed him. And Mark, let's just go on and talk about where you are going. You said it more than one time, but maybe someone hadn't listened to the podcast in a long time and they're saying, oh, Mark and Thom are going in different directions. What's going on? Talk to them about it.
Well, you invited me onto your podcast years ago. And then from that, you invited us to do a podcast together, basically your podcast, and invited me to be the sort of on guest most of the time. And that's just evolved to now being just you and I. And you've really given me this platform to share the story of replanting, revitalization that's on my heart and that our team really focuses on. And you've been so generous with your entire media platform and have really given us a great on-ramp to really get the message out there. And really the climax, the culmination of all that is you just basically said, you can just take this and just go and it's yours. And so, man, I went from being a first-time guest to sort of a regular guest to now you're going, you can run with it. And
no, you co-host for a few years in there.
Yeah. And so it was great. And we're going to focus entirely on revitalizing and replanting, especially replanting churches that are very desperate. And when your Church Answers podcast that you'll take will have a much broader field of knowledge you'll look at. So, but we've done 295 of these. We figured that's like 5 years and 8 months, so nearly six years. And we've really developed some good synergy between the two of us. And I'm certainly a better person, a better leader, a better pastor, a better missionary, because I've hung out with you. So that's been great. And then again, you've just been so gracious to platform our message in a way that has just really broadened it. I work with Free Will Baptists, Nazarenes, Assembly of Gods, all of those folks, most of that because of the book that Lifeway printed or this podcast. And most of it's the podcast. These other groups listen to that podcast. And so I'm so grateful for that and grateful for you. So yeah, we're not breaking up. He's just giving it to me to
breaking
focus.
Up is hard to do. Yeah, they say that breaking up is hard. Who sang that, Mark?
Neil Sedaka, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah. I like Neil Sedaka. He's still living, by the way.
Still has the same high voice too after all these years. Church Answers podcast will be my sequel. What we will do is drop 3 10-minute podcasts. You can listen to 1, 2, or 3 every week, real quick podcasts. And it's just what it is. We take one type of question that we're hearing that are being asked. It may not be in the form of a question. It may be a topic. And we focus just on that. Sometimes like, have you ever messed up in a funeral? That will be one of them where I'll give a story. Another one will be, why do I have more pastoral care to do and I have fewer people coming? Though, be very specific, and I'll be talking about those type of things. So Mark and I have been talking about declining churches. We've been talking about dying churches. And then we give the positive side of that, churches that start growing again, healthy, and then churches that are replanted where they are adopted by another church. So yeah, we are going in 2 different directions. And in some ways, I have been selfish in that it probably was time to do this sooner than now, because Sam Rainer listens to this podcast. He says, Dad, I love listening to Revitalize and Replant because of Mark. I've just paused for a minute. Hello, Sam. I'm your father. Hello. But that's what we hear, that Mark Clifton has made this podcast, and yes, it is time. You're not in my shadow. You are now the shadow over me. So I have to get rid of you.
You're the wind. You're the wind beneath my wings.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
Not long ago, I was sitting on the couch with Jill, and we were watching a preacher that we really like, a Bible teacher, I should say, that we really, really like. And we're watching him, and she's on one end of the couch, I'm on the other. And she just says, kind of under her breath, she just says, man, what would it be like to hear him every week? I'm going, I'm right here. She said, you know what I mean? I go, no, I really don't know what you mean, So, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Kind of, your son reminded me of that.
Well, that again, I don't know why we go down certain paths, but do you remember the movie The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Well, they had the real coaches coming in to recruit the son, her adopted son, and Nick Saban comes in.
Okay,
he at the time was the head coach of LSU. Time of that movie. Many people have forgotten that. They went to Miami, and then came back. So he came in recruiting from LSU, and he goes into the room with the adopted son, the great football player, and usually Sandra Bullock would just walk away, let them talk to each other, but she's just there staring at Nick Saban. And
it was a young Nick Saban too, right?
Yes, she was saying, "Man, he's fine. Man, he's fine." And Tim McGraw plays her husband, and he says, "Honey, I'm right here beside you. I'm here."
Same thing.
Yes, yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes.
I love it.
At it. Yeah, that was a much younger Nick Saban and LSU Nick Saban. But Mark, talk about some of the co-hosts and people who will be on Revitalize and Replant as it continues on.
Look, it's never going to be Thom and Mark. That's a unique. Abbott and Costello, whatever, Lewis and Martin. No,
I thought you were going to say Clark, and we were the Explorers.
Lewis
we're the comedians.
Actually, it's Martin and Lewis. That's what they used to say. Lewis was never first. Anyway, it's never going to be like that, but it's going to be great because here's what we got. First of all, the guy that's kind of going to ask the questions and keep us all on track, because I need to be kept on track, is a guy named Dan Hurst. And Dan has been a lifelong friend of mine. His dad and my dad were roommates in college. We know each other our entire life. We went to college together. We planted a church together. We started a bunch of businesses that went bankrupt. Well, they didn't go bankrupt, but they didn't make any money. We started a bunch of businesses together, not a bunch, but little side hustles that didn't go very well. We did that. We've just known each other our whole lives. He did grow up in Honduras. His parents were IMB missionaries. So every 3 years he'd come back and we'd spend time together. But like I said, then we went to college together and we've been close ever since. He is a world-renowned voiceover announcer.
Nobody's ever asked me to do that.
They give an award every year. It's like an Oscar. I'm serious. It's for the best movie trailer award voice, and he won it this year. He got the best. I'm not going to tell you the movie, but he got the award for the best.
No need for those cards and letters.
Yeah. And then I noticed the day before yesterday, he was nominated for Voiceover of the Year, which is like the highest award you get. You'll hear him on national food commercials all the time. You'll hear him on all that. But he loves Jesus, and he's got a great sense of humor. And he and I, when we get together, we just play off of each other. So we're going to have a great time. That's Dan Hurst. He's got this amazing voice. And then my regular guest is going to be Mark Halleck. And Mark is the pastor of Inglewood Church in Denver. He went there 15 years ago, maybe 12, 15 years ago. Had about 30 people. Today, they minister. They have 800 a week, 800 each weekend. But more importantly than that, he has a whole training center where he raises up revitalizing pastors. And they have a network of, I believe it's 30. I could be wrong. But it's a number of, I think it's 30 churches across the Mountain West states that they have adopted and have actually sent the pastors to. And Mark is this young, to be honest, when I was talking to Nam about doing this, Dan's my age, and I won't tell you who, but you know who I'm talking about. He's a sweet guy, and I love him a lot. Used to work with you. He said, he was so kind and so gentle. He said,
He waxes eloquent, I know.
yes, he does. He waxes eloquent. He said, well, maybe we just need somebody a little younger than you two to be part of the mix.
Yeah, now that Rayner, who's older than you, is out of the way, we don't need to replace it with another old coot.
And so he's such a sweet guy. And I said, well, yeah, I said, but we need to start this. He said, well, we need to start it pretty soon. And I said, yeah, because, obviously Dan and I are getting any younger. So we went, I love Mark Halleck. He's when I first started this job at North American Mission Board, Mark was one of the first guys I reached out to, and he sort of came along and helped me get it started. And so Mark is in his 30s. He's very dynamic, extremely gifted leader, lots of fun, and it's doing it right now. He's raising up replanters. He's replanted a church. He's in his 30s. He'll bring the youthful attitude. So it's Mark Halleck, Dan Hurst, and me. And so when you go to revitalizeandreplant.com, you will hear us. Now, we are, as much as we can, Tom, we are all together when we do this podcast.
Oh,
so
good.
Dan and I flew out to Denver, and we went to Mark Halleck's basement, and we did the first series of podcasts in Mark Halleck's basement. And then next week, yes, as this goes, I'm going to be, this will be already, it already happened by the time this podcast comes on, but coming up soon, I'll be preaching at Midwestern Baptist Seminary Chapel, and then we're going to use their podcast recording studio. And again, we're all going to come in and do a bunch. So as much as we can, we're all going to be in the same room together, like you and I were at first. That really helps the culture and the camaraderie. So that's what it is. Dan Hurst, the great voice. Mark Halleck, young and yet very, very, very proficient at revitalizing and raising up replanters. Mark has written a book called Raising Up Replanters. He's written a book called Pathway to Replant. Mark Halleck's written a lot of books. We'll put them in the show notes, and you can look at Mark's books and see those there. So yeah, absolutely. That's what it's going to be. If anybody's still listening, the actual podcast will be better than the description I just gave. I promise.
And once again, revitalizeandreplant.com.
There you go.
That's where they need to go to find it.
And subscribe. When you go there, subscribe, because we don't have any subscribers right now. We're starting from scratch. And basically, Dan and I, we're old men, and if we don't get subscribers, we're going to feel really left out. So help out an old guy. Do it for your granddad. All right, subscribe. Do it for your granddad. Right? You will
do absolutely fine. Once again, Church Answers podcast is going to be called the Church Answers Podcast, and we're going to take a single issue, and usually a question that's come to me or our team. We get a lot of them every single day. Mark, we did a study. It's been a few years old, and I don't think it'd be any different now. That we found that 250,000 churches, roughly. You can't get it perfect because you don't know who all is listening to your podcast or reading your articles perfectly. But we able to get a pretty good number. 250,000 churches get free or paid content from us every year. So that's
got to be the largest evangelical network of various churches in the world. I mean, I don't mean it's not like a denomination, but I mean in terms of just communicating on something like you're doing. It's got to be one of the largest. That's 250,000 churches.
Yeah, and we probably have 350 to 400,000 in the U.S., although some of our churches are outside of North America. But in the context of all of that interaction, we get questions usually by the minute. That may be an exaggeration, but if you look at emails that are coming in, if you look at blog comments and sometimes podcast comments, and if you look at our own network that we call Church Answer Central, where we take time to actually answer their question on a forum, you put all those up, we're getting a lot of data points. And so we see patterns that form. And I can just say in the course of the week, this is what's on pastors' minds right now. And so I'm going to address one of them, record it for 10 minutes, address another one, record it. I'll break up the monotony with some humorous stories every now and then. I probably will have guests because I don't impress myself. By the way, Mark, this will have already, this blog post will have already done, but it's going to be, as you and I are recording, it's a few days from now. It's on Monday. And the name of it is Why You Should Destroy Any Cassette of Me Preaching That You Happen to Come Across. That's the name of the blog post. First thing, cassette. And I talk about what a stupid preacher I was. And one of the best things that happened to the kingdom was to get me out of pastoring, particularly preaching. And so I talk about that. So I got to make sure that the Church Answers podcast isn't just Thom Rainer, because it ain't going to carry itself if it's just Thom Rainer. But at this point, I don't know who else I will bring in. I know that Sam Rainer would be an obvious choice, but Sam has his own podcast called EST, and then he co-hosts Rainer on Leadership with me. I said, dude, 3 podcasts with you a week? No, it's too much brand confusion, but I'll have Sam there. I'll have Sam there as well. So again, if you're subscribing here, that subscription just goes to Church Answers. If you've been listening here, you'll get the same feed. But if not, just go to churchanswers.com and you will be able to download anything you want to on the podcast. So
let me ask you a question. So you say 10 minutes. Is it going to be each one's going to be 10 minutes, or will it be a podcast of like 30 minutes with 3 10-minute episodes?
Each episode is going to be 10 minutes.
You can choose.
Okay. You can choose. Cool. Oh, I'm interested in that question. Oh, I'm interested in this question. You may want to listen to all 3, but we will offer 3 at a time, but they will be 10-minute bites. We anticipate that some people will want to listen to some and not others, and so we'll give them a choice.
It's a good idea. It's a great idea.
Question. Well, it's a format that I've wanted to do for some time, but it's the opportune time right now.
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. There's a handful I listen to. Man, there's so many out there. Oh my goodness.
Yes, sir.
But the real struggle with most podcasts is, dude, they're like a mini series. Can I just be honest with you? They'll be like, I look at a podcast like 96 minutes. I think I can't listen to that. I mean, I can't watch somebody's face for 96 minutes. I mean, or even 60 minutes or even 30 minutes. It's like we try to keep this one on 20, and the Revitalize and Replant, we're going to keep it to 20. I think that's much better than some of them that go. Maybe you like the long format podcast. I don't know. Now there
is an audience for long format.
There's a long format podcast that is story oriented and has some production quality, and you're kind of like you're listening to a radio show from the 1930s, frankly. And I like that because you can visualize your mind. But just 2 guys talking for an hour and a half.
Can you imagine someone trying to listen or watch us for an hour and a half? No. I mean, there would be so many trails that we traverse that have nothing to do with the topic. And they'd be saying, these guys don't even know what they're talking about anymore. They're on so many other topics. Right. I mean, you got the 2 old men just going down the trail. No, we keep these to 20 minutes for the same reason.
That's right.
We want them to be punctiliar, precise, and not perfect. Just whatever comes up. We do some preparation. I mean, we do the content ahead of time. We have some bullet points we have provided in show notes throughout the years, but primarily it's been a conversation that Mark and I have had over the years, and it's just been really, really good. So where do we go from here? Revitalize and Replant. Where do we go from here? The Church Answers podcast. Mark, I don't want to get soapy and syrupy, and I could, and maybe I should, but I owe you a lot, my friend. I owe you a tremendous amount. I've learned so much from you. I've learned not how to have a bigger head, but how to have a bigger heart. And you have taught me in so many ways. And so these nearly 6 years, I cherish, I covet, and it has made me a different person for the kingdom in all good ways. And I am determined that our friendship will not grow stale and that we will continue to stay in touch with each other. Even, you and I can talk once a quarter and it's like it was yesterday, 24 hours have passed. But whatever it will be, Jill has a great husband and Mark has a great wife and y'all have great kids. And it's just been great although I don't know your family directly that well, I've met Jill. I felt like I know them just from all of this. So thank you, my friend, for the years that you have dedicated to this and that you have given me. I don't take it for granted. I am a different and better person for it.
Well, thank you, Thom. I received that and I appreciate it. It is affirming. And as I've said before, you have taught me so much about leadership and especially in spiritual leadership that I really needed in my life. And I'm a much better pastor and missionary and team leader than I ever would have been if I hadn't spent time with you. And our passion is to get the narrative out there that there's hope for dying churches. And you generously shared your platform for us to get that out there. So I appreciate it. But I want to thank the thousands of guys and ladies who listen to us every week. and talk about it. I mean, we wouldn't have a podcast if they didn't listen, and they're very loyal listeners. I hear it all the time. I do 40 meetings a year away from home. I'm traveling all the time, and I always run into people who say, "Man, that podcast." And the cool thing is, they're all libraried. So if you want a podcast on how to deal with difficult church leaders, you want a podcast on how to reach your community, on how to deal with evangelism and stewardship and anything else. I mean, go to the website there, find them. Church Answers are there right now, right? Aren't they all still there right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you can look at them and find
I think I don't remember the mechanics. I think we're moving all of them over to you.
Yeah,
though,
probably over to us. So go to Revitalize and Replant. They'll be over there, but they're not going away. We've got 295 podcasts you can listen to till Jesus comes back. So go back and listen to those. And if you're not part of the rapture, you can even listen to him after he comes back. So anyway, I don't know. Hey, I love you all. Thank you for giving me the chance to be with you, Thom. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's been great. And we'll get together again. We'll be on each other's podcast and we'll get together again. So thanks a lot,
and
Thom.
It's so appropriate that Mark thank you, the listener and the viewer. And I just echo his words. I don't need to repeat them. I will just affirm his words instead of echo his words. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Amy, and then Alana for doing so much of the production of this. Thank you, North American Mission Board. Thank God that he has given us this opportunity. It's just been one of those. And thank you. Revitalize and Replant is going to a different place, so it's not going away. But we're about to sign off and Revitalize and Replant with Thom and Mark, and this is it. Thank you, folks. God bless you, and may your lives be enriched by the presence of his Spirit. Have a great day.